3, 2, 1.
I've seen a lot of award-winning films that had virtually no budget.
My name's McEvenue. I'm a visual effects artist. I work primarily out of Toronto, and I use lots of 3D tools within the industry. I've been doing this a very long time, so some people may not know what VFX actually is, but if you've ever shot any kind of film with your iPhone or any kind of footage, you'll know that anything that doesn't exist in real life has to be created in post. It has to be created with visual effects. So if you want to have someone shooting lasers out of their eyes, or you want to have, a building burning down, that can get very expensive, or it's not physically possible in reality. So that's where visual effects has to happen. So to me, I consider it magic. So I think the very first film I saw was Toy Story. And that was what absolutely lit my mind on fire. I was obsessed from very early on, even Wallace and Gromit, watching original claymations. What I absolutely love about 3D and VFX is that the sky's the limit. It really comes down to what can you imagine? And it's kind of, when you think about authors or people who write books, what's so cool about people who write stories is that it really is, you're only limited to your own creativity. And when it comes to 3D, it's kind of like taking that story writing and it's creating a third dimension to it. That not only can you create something where you're creating a story in someone else's mind's eye, and you can kind of daydream, where you can dream in a way that you can communicate with other people. So it's just a cool process because it's, it's very personal, and there's absolutely no limit to what you can create. I think in VFX, the demand is only growing because when it comes to the standard of the production quality, the bar is only going higher, right? And so, traditionally in TV shows, there really wasn't a huge VFX budget. Compared to now, it's they're treated like Marvel movies. Just the amount of VFX shots that are in all these productions, you would never even realize it. But, you talk about set extensions, you talk about, de-aging in some actors. You talk about all the little things you don't think about. You want to have a tree on fire because that's what it calls for the shot. Sometimes you don't want to set a forest on fire for real because it creates a lot of, unnecessary insurance, or just the cost is too prohibitive. So being able to do it in a safe way, generally you rely on VFX because you're able to accomplish a lot more, and it's just a lot more practical to do it that way. There are so many people involved in visual effects. It's very much a stage production, right? You have people who are doing your modeling, your texturing, your rigging, your animation, your particles, your simulations, your final comping, color correction, sound. There's just so many people involved and so many hands that have to touch different shots. Teamwork is essential. There's whole entire teams behind it, and sometimes thousands of people can touch, one shot. So many things that you don't ever actually see, and you only ever see the end magic in the final shot. But there's a lot of people involved. I think the negative stigma around VFX in general just comes from a lack of understanding of the industry. And again, it comes from directors who don't either understand the process themselves. So just, do it in post, fake it. And they want to have either replace an entire digital actor. And it's okay, well, you need to start with scans of them. It's you need to have a real person, or you want to, put them in some environment that doesn't exist. It's there's a lot of planning that goes into these things. So generally, directors who don't have that solid understanding can create a lot of unnecessary costs and a lot of unnecessary time to shots. So there was a recent commercial I worked on, and I won't say the client, but we hired a costume designer in order to make a costume for this thing. And it was basically an actor who was on a cell phone talking, and he had to wear this giant donut, blue ring that was around him. And this costume designer said, I can do this. This is amazing. No problem. I have so much experience. This will be easy. So she shows up on set with this thing, and it looked like trash. It was horrible. It's the worst costume I've ever seen. But they still had to shoot with it. The client was freaking out. They're this looks, amateur hour. They spent a ton of money on this. 30 people on set. Everyone's ready to roll. And so they ended up bringing me in to fix this costume. So I had to, fix all the seams. It ended up being impossible to actually use the footage part of the costume. So the costume had to be recreated entirely in 3D and then put back on the actor. And fortunately, the job was done well enough you didn't notice. So she got away with that one. In post-production, as I was saying before, because there's so many people involved in the process, what makes a good visual effects artist or someone who works in post-production is someone who understands the whole pipeline. If you understand, okay, what does each department do? Where does this shot go after I hand it off to the next artist? So I think being a good artist is just visualizing it like a conveyor belt there's going to be people that you're handing off your shot to usually, right? And so that's where just kind of understanding the process, keeping your files very organized, having a firm understanding of where it's going to, you just help the process along, and you're going to be treated like gold because you're going to be so great at just being able to perfectly fit within the pipeline that currently exists. You know, the best effects I've ever seen and the ones that often get awards, you don't see them. They're invisible. And that's, you know, when I call them magic, it's because you don't see the sleight of hand. When it comes to de-aging actors, you know, if you look at the raw footage, a lot of these actors in the 60s, 70s, they age, right? And so a lot of the times that we have, you know, you're removing wrinkles, you're trying to, you know, make their features a lot younger. And those are things that you don't see, like they're hidden. When it comes to replacing entire sets, right? Part of the set might have actually been there, but you want to add another building, you want to add more foliage, you want to add things that your eye doesn't pick up on, but it just makes the composition of the shot that much better. So the really good VFX, and I think it's actually the majority of the work. I think when people think VFX, they think marble, they think aliens, shooting lasers, all this other stuff, but really the good ones are the ones that enhance the footage that's already there, and it's set in reality. It's really enhancing what's already there. You know, when people think about 3D, they don't realize that everything in the computer has to be created from scratch. So if you take this mug, for instance, you have to model everything from the main part of the body to like the handle. You have to create the shaders, the textures, all that kind of stuff. But I'd say nowadays, more than ever, the technology has never been better. The accessibility has never been easier. So I just highly encourage everyone to just try it. If you're interested in this industry, go install those tools. You know, Unreal Engine, Omniverse, all these really amazing things. Try them out and see if it works for you. Is there any other questions or anything? Is it?
No, that's good.
Good? All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And yeah.